So finally, we are hearing about some good news for retailers, which this good news for retailers could actually mean good news for consumers as well. Today I want to explain what's going on because now we're hearing from cargo ships and some shipping companies that we are seeing a surge in inventory hitting the United States. And all of this is due to President Trump and the Chinese President Xi Jinping. They're now discussing tariffs, which means we're either going to have a deal or we're not, which brings us to the next point. What's going to happen over the next few months? Well, that's what we're going to discuss in today's video because there are some very interesting things that are happening from the White House, but also within our economy. So make sure you stick around and watch this entire video, and I'll explain exactly what is going on and what this means for you and I moving forward. But first, before I do, if you enjoy these daily updates, do me a favor, go ahead, hit that like button, and now let's begin. Look at this story right here. It says retailers see cargo surge coming. Okay, but why? Why is there a cargo surge coming to the United States? Well, it's simple. Many retailers are filling their stores and their warehouses with as much inventory as humanly possible in the event that the tariff talks with President Trump and Xi Jinping, if they go sour. And instead of a 30% tariff on Chinese imports, we actually go back up to 145%. That would be devastating. Now, I want to show you this as well, because that right there, being that there's more inventory coming into the United States, that means a greater supply and the same demand mean prices are going down. That's good news. But look at this from Reuters. Reuters says Bessent emerges as possible contender to succeed Fed's Powell. This is according to Bloomberg. I want to read this to you because this right here is something we knew was coming, where President Trump wants to remove the Federal Reserve Chairman, Jerome Powell, and instead switch him with the U.S. Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent. Look at this. It says U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has emerged as as a possible candidate to succeed Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, according to Bloomberg News just today. It says, citing people familiar with the matter, a report immediately denied by the White House. It says Bessent joins a small list of Fed chair candidates that has included Kevin Warsh, a former Fed official whom Trump previously interviewed for the Treasury Secretary. The fact of the matter is this. President Trump has been very vocal. Look at this right here. President Trump presses the Federal Reserve Chief Jerome Powell to cut interest rates by a full point despite strong jobs report. This was just from Friday, June 6th. Why is this such a big deal? It's a big deal because if we see interest rates get cut, and I know Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell is not going to do it, but that Scott Bessent could. If he gets flipped in there and now he is the new chairman for the Federal Reserve, guess what happens then? He is going to pretty much do what President Trump wants. If we need to cut the interest rate by a full point, he's going to do that. Well, here's the reason why this is huge. If we see lower interest rates, that also means more spending. It also means more borrowing. It's going to be something that's massive. It's going to be huge if this all happens. But here's the reason why I'm bringing this to your attention today. Because of the meeting that U.S. and China have had. Look at this. It says U.S.-China trade talks continue for a second day in London. It says right here, Lancaster House, an ornate government mansion in the UK capital, is the location for the second round of tariff negotiations between the U.S. and China. Investors and world leaders are watching these talks closely to see if they can help thwart the prospect of a deepening trade war between the world's two biggest economies. It says talks continued into the second day Tuesday with three of Trump's top aides attending. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, Trade Secretary Scott Bessent, and Trade Representative Jameson Greer are in London with Chinese Vice Premier and Lead Economic Representative He Lifeng representing Beijing. Okay. So let's unwrap this. Is this only going to be good? Well, this is potentially going to be good or bad. Now, here's where things can really fall apart. If we see all the inventory coming into the United States is they're all just, goods that we don't need, okay? If it's all furniture, if it's all, clothing, okay? Electronics, especially electronics where we see electronics change from year to year. This could be concerning. But if the good news here is we are seeing more inventory. The cargo ships are coming in and they are full. According to reports that we've been getting from these ports, especially over in Los Angeles and on the East Coast, these cargo ships are coming in and they're quite full compared to what they were several months ago, where cargo ships were still coming in, but many of the boxes were half empty or half full, whatever you want to call it. But here's the reason why this is big. We know the American people are tired of spending more money for things that they could have got 3 years ago, right? But now they need it. Remember when we all bought furniture and we renovated our homes and did things like that? Well, it's now starting to become time where that could happen again. People that bought furniture back in 2020 during the pandemic, guess what? Some of that furniture is worn out, right? We're 5 years in, okay? We're 5 years past the pandemic when people were buying, 4 to 5 years. That means the life of furniture is coming to an end. That means for certain electronics like TVs and computers, people want something newer. The new technology is out. And so that's what people want. Same thing with cell phones. Now with clothes, that's a little bit different because clothes change every single year. But again, furniture is a big one. Electronics, a big one. Tools, another big one. Where people that bought tools to do these renovations are probably needing new tools now. And so now they go back into Home Depot and they go back into Lowe's and all these other, home improvement stores, and they realize things are expensive now. They're expensive. I want to read something to you. Look at this right here. It says right here, as retailers brace for the peak back to school and fall winter holiday season, there is a pronounced surge in imports driven by temporary reduction in tariffs on goods from China. Many retailers who halted or reduced orders due to tariffs rising to 145% are now resuming imports following a reduction to 30% in a 90-day tariff pause. That's the big one, the 90-day tariff pause. Once that expires, okay, and again, that expires in July, beginning of July, something like that. So once that expires, the concern that many retailers have is if they don't get the inventory into the United States now, they may not get it into the US before tariffs hit. That's why we're seeing a surge. But keep in mind, and this is very important for retailers like Costco, Walmart, Target, Amazon. Amazon's huge, where they are trying to work with suppliers to get them to eat part of the cost, really a third, okay? Where Amazon's gonna, increase their costs by about a third, which is gonna push over to the consumer. Amazon's also negotiating with suppliers to get them to reduce their cost by a third of the tariff. So let's just say 10%, right? It's going to increase prices by 10%. The supplier is going to reduce their costs by 10%. And then Amazon's going to eat the other 10% costs. That's what we're hearing. The same thing goes for Walmart and also Costco. But I don't know how long this goes on. What we know is the tariffs right now are at 30%. That's the good news. We have so much uncertainty here in the United States and abroad. We don't know if the tariffs are going to go up to 50%, go back up to 145% or maybe 125%. We don't know. All we know right now is it's 30%. The American people can withstand the 30% increase. As a result, more retailers are buying inventory so they can house it here in the US. But here's the reason why this could be bad news. If the United States and China agree to a tariff of, let's say, 10%, but yet all the inventory coming into the US currently is tariffed at at 30%. That means we are paying a little bit more. We're paying 20% more, okay? Or technically, if it goes from 10% up to 20 or 30%, we're paying an increase to get the products today because of this uncertainty. So if the United States and China do agree to a deal, and yet all these retailers are bringing in all this inventory today, the concern is that they may have all this inventory that's going to be priced higher than what the new inventory coming in as. And so companies like Amazon, Temu, Shine, some of these Chinese companies, and I know Amazon is a Chinese company, but you get the idea, they buy a lot of stuff from there and sell a lot of stuff from China. If these companies now have a 10% tariff compared to what Walmart and Costco have, which they increase their prices by 30%, their products may sit. So we could actually see deep discounts from those retailers, or we could see layoffs. So just want to share that with you because I know a lot of people are wondering what's going on right now. Well, the question is, what's going to happen with tariffs? What's going to happen with the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell? And will we see President Trump and Xi Jinping actually reach an agreement sometime soon? Well, we don't know. That's why there's so much uncertainty. But as we get more information, I promise I'll bring you all the latest news and updates as soon as we get it. But that is what we know as of today. So again, thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.